Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Apex Racing TV. We're here live for the penultimate rounds of the season. It's the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, brought to you by GT Omega here in Canada for the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Mosport, as we like to call it here on iRacing, and your eyes do not deceive you. It is a wet one out there here in Canada today. I'm Matthew Duffin, joined in the commentary box with Alexa Marshall, bringing you all of tonight's action. Alexa, Mosport, very, very fast, tricky circuit, and this weather is not going to help.
Most definitely. I mean, it's the second time this season that we have had rain on the radar, and unlike Snetterton, it's come thick and fast. It's right here in the practice session, and it makes it even more tricky around this. We were talking before this, and we were saying it's a bit like Thruxton, but a lot more complex. You look at the bottom of the minimap, you can see it why it weaves in and out. You go right, left, and then into that tricky corner towards the back part of the track lap, and then down the back straight as well. This wet weather is going to make it a whole lot more interesting for them. Are they going to be able to stay on, or will they be going off the circuit? We're going to find out, as of course it is the penultimate round and it's two 25-minute races. If I'm going to say anything, this has the opportunity to be one of the most interesting races this season, and it makes it even better considering it's the penultimate round here, Matthew.
Indeed it does, and what a track to have the penultimate rounds on before we head to the Nordschleife in a fortnight's time. The championship tables, though, make for interesting reading, as the Elite Championships are the ones to take a first look at. Felix Votter leads the way on 481 points from Corey Lazarus, with Chris van der Nieste down in third place. Luke Andrews is fourth. Danny Lee himself, P5. Stefan Bosch, sixth place. Oscar Berntsen, seventh, with Matt Strand. Elias Finoli, George Tyler, Simon Mizomo, and then that of Alejandro Della Flor, P12. But Felix Votter, Corey Lazarus, only separated by some 30-odd points. It is still tight in that championship between the two of them for this outright championship, to be crowned the outright champion, should I say, in Elite.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely, that's the way it works. As we now go over to the pro standings, it's Dean Powell who leads in there, followed by Luke below. It's then Wiley Blair, Steve Clyde, Jesper Burns, Edric Rees. It's then Christopher McDuff, Rhys Saunders, Robin Noel Brown, Karen Beddy, Ben Altria, and then Shannon Fever there. It's not so tight between Dean Powell and Luke Blow, but it is still one of those fights which may be looked at into this one.
It is indeed, and heading into the AM standings then, we've got that of Ricardo Louis Pereira leading the way only slightly. This is the tightest one from Avesta Gabardi there then, sat in second place. What a season he has had, especially this back half of it. Martin Kenyon, P3, still within a shout, within touching distance is the Englishman in third place. Mike Pearce from Graham Vivers, then it's Jeremy Walsh, Ed Junker, Andrew Fellows, Fotis Kachos, in P9, Clive Davis 10th place with Cisco Rodriguez and Samuel Clark rounding out the top 12. Lexi, we've only got 18 drivers out there tonight, a handful of elites, a handful of pros, a grid full of the AM drivers, so a real chance, obviously points per category, not points for overall finishing, but a real chance, Lexi, tonight for these AMS drivers to really sort of stake a name and show what they can do on the big stage, with eyes really being on that category tonight.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. You were talking about it as well, how tight it is. Of course, we got Gabardi, who is either on the circuit, as, of course, this back half of the season, just before the halfway point as well, realistically, once we hit Donington, since then, he has been on an absolute power drive, and he's been closing in that gap to the top of that championship. So, Gabardi, we've seen what he's been doing in these last few ones. He had an amazing time the last time in the wet weather, and now it looks to be a lot better. However, we will go back to Snetterton for Gabardi. Of course, that one was a little bit more tricky. It was an unfortunate first race, better second. He's going to have to hope that history does not repeat tonight.
Indeed he is, and if we're looking at the times out there currently in the practice session, obviously practice doesn't mean a lot because drivers could have gone out there on lower fuel, on racing fuel. We don't know what fuel they would have been using. Kenyon, that third place driver, currently sat in sixth place overall, third place in the championship in AM. He's splitting that of Gabardi and that of Louis Pereira. He's the man to keep our eyes on. Felix Votter, he could possibly be crowned champion tonight if points work out correctly. Obviously stewards' decisions and so forth left in this championship, but Felix Votter, the man leading the elite category, he's got work to do currently, well off the pace at the moment, 2.8 seconds off the pace, a little trip onto the grass there, so interesting to see what these drivers can do. Like we said, only 18 drivers tonight, shame to not see a stacked grid that we've had all season, but as we said at the top of the programme, this is the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, brought to you by GT Omega, and GT Omega obviously being the title sponsor. We'd like to thank them for their enormous support of the series. GT Omega is a Scottish company and is the UK's leading supplier of sim racing cockpits, gaming chairs and essential gaming accessories, delivering to the United Kingdom, Europe and the United States. They offer a range of excellent value sim racing cockpits from beginning to advanced. Furthermore, you can get 5% off all GT Omega products with the discount code DannyLee. Check out their full range at gtomega.co.uk, gtomega.eu or gtomega.com for that one. And with the different classes, if you are new to the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, if you are on iRacing and you fancy taking on this championship, you have to have an I rating of between 1,000 to 2,000 to get accepted into the amateur class. You have to have a pro class is 2,000 to 3,000 and the elite class is 3,000 plus. And the most experienced driver with the best I rating on the grid is that of Felix Votter, over 9,000. But he's got Van den Isse, who's not far behind on 8,700 as well. It just goes to show on this grid, Lexi, the vast difference and experience of drivers up and down the grid here in the Danny Lee Porsche Cup.
Yeah, and it's definitely made for some of the most interesting racing that we've seen so far this season, as basically 3 cars, almost a third, there was 2 of them, synchronising and going off in that same corner. It was Grammy Vivas who was one of them, but with this I rating, it does go to show though, like some of these categories, they are simply by I rating. We've seen plenty of fights between drivers across this season, and it goes to show that it's not the car, it's the driver. And of course, every single driver in the exact same car here in the DLPC, it is one of the best. In fact, it's a big moment into Steve Clyde's, and I believe, yes, that was Ricardo Louis Pereira. So a big shunt there into the right-hander. That, luckily enough, it's practice, but I still think there's going to be some words exchanged when they get back to the paddock, as we see Clive Davies also going off at the same corner. So even though it's different skill ratings, we've just seen 3 different drivers from 3 different categories go off at exactly the same corner.
Yep, and that's the bonus of not multi-class racing, but multi-category racing. Incidents can happen up and down the grid, and this is where drivers don't fight for overall points. It is points in the class. So even though these incidents have happened in this practice session, they will not want to do that in the race. That is for sure then, as we are about 6 or 7 minutes away from the first qualifying session of the evening. Remember, that second race is a reverse grid race. And that is what's going to... We saw it setting, didn't we, in the wet weather conditions. That made it very interesting, having that reverse grid and a few of the other category drivers being up there at the front sharp end of the grid for race 2. Really made it very interesting. And I'm sure we're going to have a similar thing tonight, Lexi.
Yeah, I mean, like, the comparison is made to be with Snetterton. Of course, both of those were 2 25-minute races, and both of them had 1 wet race and 1 dry race, which we are going to be having tonight. So Snetterton, and then here tonight at Mosport, that is the comparison. So it's going to be interesting as well to look at the experience that has been grown from it. Of course, iRacing not having wet weather as long as some other games, so there may be drivers who are still not used to this wet weather, as of course not everywhere uses wet weather, but here at Daniel Lake Porsche Cup we are, as we see Avesta Gabardi, who's making his way around right now, and it does create that experience. And of course, when they look at the stats realistically, it's going to see how much they've improved. It's moderately wet out there on the track surface, 19-degree track temperature, 19-degree ambient, 4km/h wind, and then 35% precipitation or rain coming down from the atmosphere. So it's creating a nice little aspect tonight, and I'm going to say, with the weather that we currently have, it's going to be a wet race 1 and a dry race 2. So that's going to make it even more interesting when we get to reverse grid. Of course, another key thing that is going to be interesting tonight, Snetterton, there was a lot more drivers racing there. Only 18 tonight, and only the top 12 get reversed. So over half of the grid is going to get reversed tonight, going into race number 2. Which some may say a lower grid is worse. However, I think it may actually create for more interesting racing action tonight.
Maybe so. We'll have to wait and see what happens in that second race. But one thing we can be sure of is that the track will not clear too much of that standing water. We saw at Snetterton, a lot of cars on track started to up some of the water clear, even though the rain was falling. That's a huge instance into the wall there for Gabardi. You see the rear wing just fall off the back of the car momentarily. It is Stefan Bosch, the Swiss driver, who is currently quickest out there on the track at the moment. Just over 4 minutes to go until the start of the first qualifying session here at Mosport. And a real chance, I think, in this race for some of these drivers to show off their skills, because you've got to be clever on where you overtake tonight, Lexi, haven't you? And this is going to be the big thing looking forward. If you're starting down that pack, especially that reverse grid race, you want to make sure you can overtake, and overtake cleanly will be the big thing to keep our eyes on.
I mean, most definitely. I mean, this is my first time doing Mosport. I don't know if you've got history here, Matthew, but the way I'm looking at this mini-map and the way that I'm looking at the circuit, onto the back straight, out double right-hander, I'm going to say that's going to be a good overtaking opportunity if you can get alongside. But maybe also a sneaky move down the inside through turn number 2 and turn number 3, because that is that looks like a place where you can maybe get your nose in and go side by side. However, of course, another big thing about these cars is that there is no traction control. So you have really got to be careful about where you're putting your foot down.
Yeah, that's going to be the big factor tonight, especially in the wet, to not lose the rear as much as in the dry. This is going to be an interesting one to keep our eyes on what happens in this first race, and this could be an exciting one to watch, as we're watching Jasper Burns, currently second place overall, the pro driver, currently half a second off the back of Bosch. And it's a real jumbled up pack at the moment, isn't it? Danny Lee down in 7th, the elite driver, as is Van der Niesa 11th, Vottas down in 14th place. I think we could be in for an exciting qualifying session, to be fair.
I mean, the way that we're looking at free practice right now, it goes Elite, Pro Am, Elite, Pro Am, Pro, Elite, Am, Pro, Elite. So it's very mix and mashed up at the top. It may be due to getting acclimatized to the track, but it does create an interesting aspect here. Of course, like you said earlier, practice isn't everything, but if it's going to give any indication to qualifying, which I would say it will, considering that you're going to want to get as much wet weather running in for the race and for quali, I say that it's going to be maybe the most interesting one over the entire season. But we do say that, as of course a reminder for you, this is the penultimate round. The final round in a fortnight's time is going to be the Nordschleife combined. So we've got two very different circuits across these two final rounds.
And that's the 45-minute race as well, so that's going to be an interesting one to see. The combined circuit, obviously, as we know, it's going to take about 9 minutes to get round in these Porsche Cup cars. I believe, anyway, around the 9-minute mark. It's going to be fascinating to see what people can do around there. That's going to be a tricky one to see and keep our eyes on. We're currently watching Stefan Bosch as we have a minute remaining, just over on the clock here. And Stefan Bosch, I tell you what, he's put some laps in this practice session. 25 laps. He's just started. He's 25th. He's 26th, so he's really put the laps in. Stefan here to make sure he's got that car feeling hooked up. And with these wet dry races, Lexi, as well, obviously speaking not just as a commentator, as a driver yourself, what's your thoughts going into a practice session like this one? Because obviously drivers will be wanting to get that adapting to the wet conditions in this practice, in qualifying in the first race or maybe second race, we're not sure yet. How do you change? How do you adapt, obviously testing so much in the wet?
I mean, I think one of the things that you have to be careful about, and just for me personally, is looking to where you can get your acceleration in. Of course, the wet surface, not as much traction, which I already struggle enough with in the dry. So in the wet, it does make you think about it even more, and it can create you to go a little bit slower. But if you are slower, but you're able to be more consistent, as that is Steve Kleiss, I believe, who's just gone for a spin as the rear end slipped out there through the double right-hander. But it's one of those things where in a dry race, your tyres, they like to stick to the circuit with the hot track and the rubber in. But in the wet weather, there's practically none of that there. You've got to go in blind, and it's like driving on say a dry race is on Earth. It's like you're driving on Mars.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. That is qualifying starts now. Remember, the drivers are limited to the amount of qualifying laps they can get in. And while they enter their outlap of this qualifying session, we'll thank Race Anywhere for their support of the series. Race Anywhere provides a curated high-quality sim race equipment for the perfectionist, based in Daventry in the United Kingdom, but delivering worldwide, specialising in Sim Magic, Cubic Controls, Sparko, Cobra, Pro Sim Rig, and many more. Visit their showroom to experience exceptional sim racing equipment and take your order home with you, or order online at raceanywhere.co.uk, delivering globally. With that, to thank them for their continued support as well. We're currently watching Martin Kenyon, the AM driver, out on circuit at the moment in his Porsche Carrera, his Porsche Cup car, coming through onto the back straight now. And it's interesting to see the different parts of standing water, Lexi, around the Mosport circuit here. The undulations up and downhill. It's I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait for this race. I'm loving the wet races. Since iRacing has brought the weather to them, I think they add such an interesting factor and feature to all the races on the curbs here. As you can see, here's Oscar Berntsen coming out of pit lane at the moment. Onto the circuit he comes, and what are we expecting? Stefan Bosch looked like he was pretty much in control in that practice session. Let's see, are we expecting or tipping him to be pole position maybe in this one?
Well, Stefan Bosch, he was there in free practice, but I do want to say, you cannot count out Felix Votter. He's been there the entire time. He's been there the entire season, and there is a reason why he is leading the championship at the moment. So it is going to be an interesting one, and I'm just looking through the drivers tonight, and I do not see a Corey Lazarus. So it is going to be Felix Votter. It's in his hands right now. He does not have his closest championship rival with him tonight. So it is tonight or never, I would say, for Felix. Yes, he can get a nice little margin for the Nordschleife, but with how not dangerous because of how safe the cars are nowadays, but how challenging that circuit can be. One mistake and it is safe to say your race will be done. I say he wants to get this championship done and wrapped tonight here at Mosport.
Looked like he struggled a little bit in practice, did Felix Votter. We're awaiting the first lap times to come in onto the board as drivers will be getting ready to set their first flying laps at the end of this one. It was Stefan Bosch who was quickest in the practice session with 3 minutes into a 15-minute session. Remember, drivers only have number of laps. Is it 4 laps, I believe it is, or 5 laps to their name that they can set in this session? It's going to be an interesting one to see as Gabardi goes quicker than Kenyon by 9/10 of a second. That is a huge margin from Gabardi. Finoli then goes in second place, splitting the difference of half a second at the moment. So Gabardi so far, what a lap that was to kick off this qualifying.
Yeah, we said it in practice, don't count them out. They only get 4 qualifying runs here. Felix Votter, P number 2, splitting the gap to the top, being a 0.391. Mike Pierce, slowest so far, nearly practically 3 seconds, but it's 2.933 off the top time. Gabardi is the one in control at the moment, and I am surprised that man's iRating is not higher from what we've seen from him this season. And sitting up top at the moment, the Ukrainian, it is one statement as Steve Kleiss and Chris Van der Nies go and set their lap times now. Chris, slowest of the elite times on the board. Kleiss, the only pro time on there at the moment. The other 3 are, of course, and that being Mike Kenyon, Mike Pierce, and Gabardi as Junker now goes to the line, as that is going to be, of course, Oscar Bernson as well. P number 7 now, 1.999 off the top, 1,000 off a 2 second behind for the Swede. It's then going to be Willie Blair, who then goes P number 11, and here comes Daniel Lee. Matthew, what can we expect from him?
Well, Danny Lee, let's see what we can expect. But Gabardi did improve on his last run. He's gone 8/10 between himself and Felix Votter as Danny Lee down in 11th. That's a shame to see. Hopefully he can find some more pace in this one because we know he's a quick driver. We know he's got more in the bag as Danny Lee. As Stefan Bosch now closes to within half a second of Gabardi. And Felix Votter also improved, but Bosch goes in between. Gabardi has put in an absolute belter of a lap time, a 26.9 at the moment. He is flying out there as Stefan Bosch, currently P2, Felix Votter from then that of Elias Finoli, Luke Blow, Chris Van der Nies and Martin Kenyon, Jesper Burns, Ketchios and Graham Vivers rounds out the top 10. That is, Lexi, I have to say, probably the lap of the day from Gabardi.
Yeah, from Gabardi it is, but we saw it in practice. The question is, can Stefan Bosch find it again? Fastest lap time in practice was a 1 minute 26.080, set by the man who is now on your screens. So the question is now, is he going to be able to find that time again, or could he go even faster? It's going to be an interesting one. His best lap time at the moment at 127.444. However, it is looking like an improvement for him, but we'll have to wait and see as, of course, anything can happen into these final few corners. Yeah. It is the Switzerland driver who is making their way, trying to fight all the way to the top. I do not think they will be happy if they are dethroned by Gabardi. But, of course, we've got lap number 1, which will be coming away. And the final corner now for Stefan Bosch. What is it going to be able to do? Will it be an improvement? And it will be a big improvement, but not as fast as practice, but it puts it less than a 10th. But it's Stefan Bosch up top, 126.882, and that is 0.036 for Gabardi behind, as that is Kate Choss up an improvement as well into P number 7.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that from Bosch there. I was expecting a little more. It looked a really good lap. Gabardi did pit at the end of his second run. So this would be his first flying lap since leaving the pit lane. He's got 2 more laps left at his disposal. Can Gabardi find such a small amount of time? Felix Votter, Finoli and Blair back into the pit lane, as is Fellows at the moment. Ricardo Louis Pereira is the only driver, we're up to 19 cars, he's the only driver to yet to set a lap time in this session at the moment. Here he is on the track right now, is Louis Pereira. And let's see what he can do. But Gabardi has to find a very small amount of lap time here to be able to try and get that provisional pole back from Stefan Bosch, the Swiss driver, doing fantastic. Martin Kenya moves up into 7th place. That is Van den Ise into the wall. P6 at the moment overall. And that'll be that lap. And maybe the others ruined. He's pulled back onto the track and manages to get into the pit lane. Danny Lee now moves up into 7th place. So let's see what lap times drivers have got left in them. Let's see how many laps they've got left as well, as Danny Lee now trying to get one more. Blow goes up into 3rd place within half a second as Stefan Bosch. And Gabardi matches the exact time of Stefan Bosch and it puts him on provisional pole. That is incredible. They've done the exact same lap time and Gabardi P1 overall at the moment.
I mean, just look at that. Exactly the same. You do not see that often. And that is going to be one for the record books. If it stays as it is spicing up here in the penultimate round of this, of course, the first ever season of Daniel Lee Porsche Cup. And we've already seen the battles so far this season, and it looks like it's going to be an even better one tonight as we're watching Grammy Vivas and now Ed Junker as we head around this circuit one more time. It is such a fast circuit from what we are seeing. It's so much time to find. And with all the standing water, I'm starting to think here was the reason why Gabardi didn't get that time initially is because he had a little bit of a dip into the standing water, and then that time round he was able to stick out of it as Clive Davies is P number 16 now with a slight improvement. Danny Lee with an improvement there as well, up into P number 4, trying to dethrone Luke Blow, unable to at that time, but that puts him on the 2nd row. So it is getting a whole lot more spicy, and honestly, it may be a takeaway after this.
Apologies there, forgot to hit the unmute button as I was commentating away. Danny Lee, sorry, just going up into P4. Looks a lot wetter, Lexi, in this qualifying session than what it did at the end of practice. Going to be an interesting one because Gabardi at the moment, like we said, same lap as Bosch. Blow then the leader of Pro, half a second off the back. Votter, for me, is the surprise one with that pace at the moment. 6/10 off the back of Gabardi. Not sure what is happening with Van den Ise out there. He's returned to the pit lane. So is he just experiencing a few possibly technical issues out there at the moment? No, he looks like he's got back away now. So Van den Ise is back underway. Still, only the 18 cars with a lap time set. There is Graham Vivas, Chris Van den Ise and Danny Lee out there on laps at the moment. Everybody else is in the pit lane. They possibly have done their allocated laps. And we are getting very, very close to this start of the race on a surface that looks like it's getting wet, Alexi.
I mean, this looks like an average Monday afternoon for us, Matthew, here in the UK, but I don't think it would be like this in iRacing for quite a while, so it's a big adjustment. There's a big impact for Chris Van den Ise into the barrier there. You saw the car lift off the ground. They are really struggling out there. I think we're not going to see this. We may see them, but I think it's becoming so wet now that it's going to be hard to see any improvements.
Yeah, the rain hasn't eased up, has it? And that's the problem, is lap times aren't going to improve the more it rains. So, yeah, it possibly looks like it's going to be like still moderately wet. The chance of precipitation has actually dropped quite significantly there, but still, with less cars circulating, that track just isn't being able to clear that standing water, and that is causing a lot of things to just... a lot of the puddles to just mount up and pile up. And yeah, this is possibly what's catching Van den Ise out here at the moment. P7 so far, needs a very small amount of time to get ahead of Finoli.
only very small. Like, it is only 6,000ths of a second to get onto level playing, 7,000ths to get in front of him. So it's a very, very small margin if he can get the lap time in. There's 3 minutes now remaining here in the qualifying session as he does drive through the standing water, as you see it building up at the side of the track. You can see a tiny dry line. It won't be dry, but you can see the line. But I don't think you're gonna be able to use it. This is Chris's 4th lap, so you're only allowed 4 laps, so it is a bit more tricky for him. But P7 right now, and
yeah, I'm just wondering, Lexi, if he's had a few technical issues. We saw him off a couple of times. I'm just wondering if he's circulating, just to try and maybe make sure everything's working okay. We saw that he was struggling to get away momentarily, so this could be a chance for him to maybe just make sure everything's working okay. If this is his 4th lap, he's got one chance to improve on that time. They have got Ricardo Luis Pereira still out there, yet to do a lap time. He's chose to go at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those unfortunate things. He's making his way through right now. For him, I think it's just a matter of getting a lap time on the board for Ricardo. So I think that's what he's going to be hoping to do, because it is a pretty tight field, so even if you're only able to get 1 lap time in and it's only a banker, it can still gain you quite a few positions. Of course, only 19 drivers on the grid. Ricardo Luis Pereira, the only driver yet to set a lap time, so he's P19 currently. But it's very tricky out there. You can see the drivers soaring at the wheel, just trying to find the grip in the front tyres for the Porsches, which sound absolutely lovely, but can be a pain to drive sometimes, especially in conditions such as these. And it does create that atmosphere of, what can I do to get up there? What can I do to find this grip? What can I do to find this time? And what is going to be going through Ricardo's mind at the moment? That is the true question as you head onto this part of the circuit. It can be very, very tricky. And Matthew, as a driver and a commentator, you also know wet weather. What's it like when you get up to high speed? As slow speed for me personally, it can be a bit more controllable, but high speed, it's very different.
Yeah, of course. Every track will always be something different, won't it? As you just seen there, Ricardo Pereira just not really missing his apexes. He's just taking that wide line. You see when he gets on the apex, look, that little wiggle there, as the puddles just start to mount up. That's where it's a struggle for him, because of the puddles mounting up on that inside curb. This is why we're seeing these wet lines being taken into play here. It's almost like you're back to go-karting, back to trying different lines to find what you can do. He's gone P15, so can be pretty pleased with that. The qualifying does come towards end, and it is Avesta Gabardi, the AM driver, who takes out not just class pole position, he takes the outright pole position by matching the same lap time as Stefan Bosch. What an absolute dream that would be for the amateur driver then, as we will get you that grid order very shortly then. The drivers taking to the grid. It is Avesta Gabardi, P1 from Stefan Bosch. Identical lap times. You cannot make that up. Luke Blow is then P3. Bosch, the leader of Elite, and Blow, the leader of Pro. Danny Lee is P4 from Felix Votter in 5th. Elias Finoli is P6. Van der Nisa P7. Jasper Burns P8 with Martin Kenyon P9. Don't forget he's 3rd in that championship with Gabardi and then that of Louis Pereira. Ketchos is P10 with Graham Vivas 11th. Mike Pierce down in P12. 13th place then for Steve Kleiss with Ed Junker P14. Ricardo Luis Pereira, championship leader in the AM category, down in 15th place with Oscar Bernson 16th. Clive Davis from Wiley Blair, and then Andrew Fellows and Lexi. Ricardo Luis Pereira 15th place on the grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th, 7th place in category, while Gabardi and Kenyon 1st and 2nd in category. We know that's where the points are scored. That could be huge for this AM Championship going into not only the 2 25-minute races tonight, but then the race at the Nordschleife next week.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I think we're waiting for a few of them to come, but they now go on the grid. It's all eyes to the lights as they get ready to rumble here at Mosport. It is the penultimate round of the season. Green flag drops and we are racing. Louis Pereira, Chris Van den Nesse, Danny Lee, all with very good starts. Heading down in turn one, number 1. Gabardi's got away very well. Already looking for it. Felix Votter, he's up a place on this. He wants that championship Louis Pereira, 3 positions up, Finoli up as well. 3 wide there momentarily, into the left-hander. All of the drivers going very, very wide. A few almost touching on
Whoa, someone off in the background.
That is 2 cars off in the background. 1 into the barrier, 1 drifting through. That is Grammy Vivas, who is down 8 positions after that. Junker down as well. He gets up past fellows, wheel to wheel, side by side. You see Louis Pereira there, Luke Blow as well. In fact, that's going to be plenty of drivers. Oh, that was Finoli. Big rear end loss there, Matthew. He's off and into the barrier as we head into the second half of this lap.
Yeah, and he's off at the first real tricky part of this circuit as you come up the hill into the heaviest braking zone on this course. He has a big snap into the wall backwards, but Gabardi gets a great start. They're 3 wide coming down the back straight with a car in front. We're on board with that car in front. It's Luke Blow at the moment. It is chaos behind him with Burns, Ketchos and Danny Lee involved in this as well. He dropped down the order a little bit. This is Ketchos. And then that of Burns, Ketchos right around the outside as you're coming towards the S's. Lovely little move there. But what a start from Gabardi on the pole. He got away well, got away clean. And it's been a hectic lap for everybody else following behind. The spray will be absolutely hectic for these drivers. And Danny Lee now down in 8th place. There you can see the spray at the moment into turn 1, hugging that curb before then drifting it out wide, flicking it back across the right. You're going to drop downhill now on this left-hand bend. Danny Lee, got to just be careful. There's drivers taking different lines. That is Burns into the grass a little bit. And was that a little tap on the back of Ketchos there? But Danny Lee is through either way. And sorry, it was Blow, not Burns, who was on the grass. His car's off in the background as well. Everybody's struggling coming through this downhill section.
Burnson, who is gone onto the grass. I think that was a contact with Clive Davies from the looks of it. So that was a big moment there. The spray and the wipers are working overtime at this high-speed circuit, and it's been absolute chaos. But it's the good type of chaos. And Gabardi, 1.5. He got away out into the field. He is having an absolute statement here. Stefan Bosch, Votter and Chris van den Esse still trying to hunt him down. They are bringing down the gap. But you gotta wonder, he has been showing defence across this entire season. Yeah. He is going to want to hold on to that overall win. He wants this. He needs this as Fellows gets past Davies further back. It is Gabardi in control. It's 25 minutes. We're nearly 5 minutes in. How long is he going to be able to hold on to?
At the minute, Louis Pereira look up to 3rd place in category, 9th overall. Damage limitation for his championship lead with Gabardi leading in that AM category. At the moment, Blow is up to P5. So Danny Lee's got back ahead of Burns then. So Danny Lee now running in P6 overall. Luke Blow, the leader in the pro category. The orange and black car coming down in towards the middle sector. Downhill, back up the hill he's going to come momentarily before getting to the tricky part. You just seen taking a different line there to Danny Lee. Who is this? This is Wiley Blair, who looks like he's had a moment coming down the hill. And that has allowed Kleiss and Finoli to get through here at the moment. This is going to be an interesting one to keep our eyes on. Burnson struggling in the background as well. And Junker and Fellows doing trying to recover after their earlier exploits onto the grass. Gabardi is P1 in this race. 9/10 of a second now to Bosch, Felix Votter, Van den Isse, then Luke Blow. Your top 5 at the moment. Battles happening throughout this race here at Mosport. And this is going to be an interesting one to see. This is Jesper Burns at the moment with Ketchos on the back of him. Coming up over the brow of the hill. Ketchos just having a look to the outside line. And it's not going to work through there in towards the S as they come now. Ketchos, you just see one thing you're just noticing, Lexi, with these couple of these S's here, different lines taken by different drivers, and that's going to be exciting to see what happens throughout this wet race.
It's definitely, it may be down to the fence or it may be avoiding the puddles, as on the back you see a little squiggle there for Ketchos. So that's going to be a quick correction for him. It's down to less than a second, now a second for the leaders as well, so we've got to keep an eye on the timing board for that in case something happens. But right now it is the Greek driver who's trying to get further up after the escapade earlier on, as Luis Pereira is off and they have lost 2 positions there. Danny Lee gets past Luke Blow further up.
It's absolute chaos. What has happened?
We have to get a replay on that as they do move out of the way. Wiley, Blair, Burnson I think Finoli were all caught up in that. I think Finoli got away. Danny Lee gets past Chris Van Den Esse. While we were watching this happen, let's see what happens here. 2 cars go off. Steve Kleiss is definitely one of them. Goes through the left-hander. It's hard to tell from that angle if it was contact.
Lexi, I just think they've both dropped it. I don't think they've made contact there. I think both cars have synchronised spinning. Hopefully Samuli's listening. If we can get an on-board of Berntson's car, maybe to show you a different angle of that one. But I think they've both had a bit of a synchronised spin there. The 2 cars were off in front. One of them was Kleiss. Here we go. This will be on board Berntson then. So they're coming downhill. There's Kleiss and another car off. Bit of a tap on the brake there. Oh no, there was contact. There was contact. I think Berntson's been caught out then by the braking.
Yeah, braking from the car in front to try and avoid the contact. Berntson has to brake as well, but goes left to try and get out the way to not cause the contact again. But unfortunately, that just ends up with both of them spinning around. So that was actually 2 separate incidents there, it seems, but both having the same result of the cars spinning around through the long left-hander. While we were watching all that unfold, Kenyon Kechos has just lost 2 positions, but I do wonder if we can get a replay, because a big move in the top 5. Danny Lee is now past Chris Van Den Esse.
Yeah, he is past Van Den Esse, and Louis Pereira's lost out to Pierce as well. So here's another replay of what has happened. This is Van Den Esse then, who we've seen may have been struggling technically in the practice session. Just clips the inside part of the runoff into the heavy braking zone, and that's just simply aquaplaned off the road, and he has to rejoin there. Louis Pereira is actually lost out now to Ed Junker and Andrew Fellows back on the live screen. In fact, he's now lost out to Graham Vivers. So something has happened to Louis Pereira. Was running 3rd in class. He's now tumbled down the standings, and this is not what he needs. This is what happened to Louis Pereira. This is not what he needs for that championship. Did he have a contact? No. Into the big puddle, aquaplane onto the grass, and just has struggled to recover that, because round she goes. Keep it out the wall. Bang, big wallop. This is not the round that Louis Pereira wanted for this championship.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is not. But he's gonna have to get into that top 12, I would say. Yes, there is a second race, but if he can get into that top 12, that's going to help him out even more at the end of the day. So he's going to have to put that pedal to the metal, the foot to the floor, and try and go as fast as possible, or he's going to be sat where he is for the time being. Finoli behind him. So it is one of those things. Finoli is 10 positions down from where they started in P number 6. So it's very interesting to see what will happen there, as Vivers gets past Fellows. As I believe Fellows, you saw him just in front, went very wide through that right-hander, maybe touching the grass a little bit, so has to try correct it. And now around the outside, Finoli looking at Louis Pereira, but Louis Pereira with the up and under, gonna fly past Fellows. And that is a nice little move. We didn't get to see the full of it due to riding on board with Finoli, but we saw what we needed to, as Berntson now gets past Blair. Vivers has had a moment, and you can see in the back, I think that's a drop on their own, and just into the braking zone and into the barrier. We all get a replay here. Looks like they're on their own. I do believe it is what happens. Going downhill through the left-hander, puddles on the inside, big puddle, very wide, tries to correct it, big impact into the barrier, and I'm going to say, no surprise if there is suspension damage now on that Porsche. And I just want to say this, we're not even 10 minutes into this race yet.
No, we're not. Still 15 minutes to go, and that was a mistake all on his own. And this is what it's interesting seeing this Porsche Cup racing, is drivers making their own mistake. That there was Vivers just hitting a puddle. Car wouldn't react the way he wanted it to. It then put him into a spin, and that was all she wrote. This is Gabardi, though, defending now from Stefan Bosch, the leaders of this race and the leaders of their category. Gabardi going out very wide to come back in. He's able to do that. Bosch wasn't alongside. Now down the back straight. This is where the slipstream can come into play a little bit, but the problem is, how much do you want to follow that car in front with the spray so far? This is going to be an interesting one at the moment. Gabardi leading from Bosch. They have absolutely dropped Felix Votter, can we just point out, these two. Votter has not got an answer for these two in this race at the moment, and Gabardi doing exactly what he needs to do in this race. We are 10 minutes in, and now we're looking to see what else these drivers can do as they enter the second, or coming up to the halfway stage of the race. This is going to be an interesting one to see what happens. Gabbardi from Bosch, from Votti, your top three at the moment. Danny Lee back up into fourth. He can be mixed feelings, I suppose, about this race, as he's had a bit of an up and down one.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, this battle up front, it is the one which is the big one. And if you are just tuning in on Apex Racing TV, we will remind you that Stefan Bosch and Gabbardi set identical lap times in the qualifying session. So not only is this for the overall position, but I think you could probably name this battle the best in the wet. So This is really going to be a battle between these two drivers. Gabbardi is in control at the moment, but I don't think Bosch is going to want to let him to let him stay there, because even though Felix Votter is falling off a little bit, he still wants to put a car in between him and Felix Votter. So it's going to be an interesting one, as that was a very loud noise there, as Bernstein now gets past Davies. Very, very big moment as they now head down the back straight, and it seems like Bosch has the better straight line speed, but Gabbardi seemingly better in that first sector.
Yeah, Gabbardi had a huge moment coming onto the back straight. He was very slidey coming through it. What I like about this, if you're Gabbardi, if you're a fan of Gabbardi, or if you're Gabbardi himself, how much experience you getting from this race with an elite driver on the back of you. Just then that, being able to learn them defensive lines, being able to try and keep in front, the experience you're going to be getting from this race will be absolutely huge. Gabbardi here doing great bits at the moment, as Luis Pereira's tumbled down a couple of places there. He's in a wall, and that is stationary. He is out of this race, and I tell you what, that is going to have huge ramifications for this championship. This is what happened in this moment at the moment. We know he's already got front end damage. He's been in the wall once. And what's going to happen here then? There's nobody around him. Oh, he's got on the grass, and it's pulled him in and sucked him in. Get him. It looks like he's trying to recover it. Okay. And then he just parks it. So, such a strange one, that.
Yeah, that is a very, very strange one out there.
Oh, Gabbardi's off!
Oh,
Gabbardi's off!
Oh, we were looking at that. Luis Pereira, Gabbardi keeps it going. But what has happened to that looks the same corner where you said he had that slide on the previous lap.
Oh, there we go, look.
Right-hander, yeah. We've seen many drivers do it. Gabbardi does it as well. Going into the corner. Almost takes out Bosch. And that could have become a whole lot more if he went into him. But luckily, Bosch got away with it. So did Felix Votter. Gabbardi now falls down, and he is in he's now in P number 6. Stefan Bosch, we get the replay here. How close was this gonna be? You saw the steering wheel. Bosch just kept it straight. He knew if he turned and his car slowed down, he would have got contact there. So that was very, very good awareness for Bosch, and he now leads.
The bonus for Gabbardi, he still leads in category. Kenyon's having a fight with Pierce for second place in category. The leader in that AM championship is out this race. And it's a good job that Kenyon did not get past Gabbardi, because that would have had, again, huge championship ramifications for the AM drivers. And Kenyon sat in third in that championship at the moment. But a big moment coming into this section here for Gabbardi. Made the mistake all himself. Did exactly what Vivas did earlier on. Just got on the wet stuff. Got on the puddles. Aquaplaned into the wall. And he couldn't stop it from brewing in his race, really, because he's had such a good race. Up until that point, we are literally within the last 10 minutes of race number 1. It looks like it's starting to brighten up here. Van der Niesa has got Danny Lee all over the back of him. This is now turned out to be for the final podium position at the moment as they come through the middle sector of the lap. That is Burns just on the rear of them two. There is Felix Votter below your screen. There is Burns in the background. Then Gabbardi. The question is, can Gabbardi come back as Danny Lee has a little look up the inside of Van der Niesa? Can't do anything there.
We're talking about the ramifications as we watch this podium battle go on with Luis Pereira this race and Gabbardi leading in the category. I do believe that will give Gabbardi the lead in the AM Championship, but that's Jesper Burns who is off into the grass. That, I believe that is I think that's half the grid who's gone off of that corner this evening now, just showing how tricky the conditions are out there. So it's creating an interesting atmosphere here, and it's going to make race 2 even more interesting, of course, with the reverse grid as well for the race. Daniel Lee now into the podium, Chris Van der Nies into the barrier there at the same corner, and that corner is claiming a whole lot of action tonight, Matthew.
I've done a GT3 race around Mosport in the dry. It's amazing how much the downhill section, then this uphill section catches people out. And again there, Van der Nies just looked like he just didn't want to grip and turn into the wall on his own. Daniel Lee, thank you mama for the carrots. He'll get through and take that position. He goes up onto the podium. Now this is Kenyon side by side with Pierce. This could be really for Kenyon to gain places in this championship. Drifts wide, understeers wide onto the grass, and has to get right out the throttle here before he loses the car. Kenyon hit now, really trying to gain some good points over that of Louis Pereira to stay in this championship fight. He knows Gabardi's not really his race in this one, but he'd love to pass Pierce for a second place in category and to keep his championship hopes alive. But it's Bosch from Votter from Lee now your top order. Gabardi's not far off the back of Van der Nies though at the moment, as Van der Nies now got past Danny Lee. Danny Lee's gone wide coming downhill, and Gabardi gets through as well. So Danny Lee just makes his own mistake again, understeers a little wide, and this track will hurt you if you push the limits too far, and drivers just flirting on the edge of too much here, and they are being punished as this race goes on. Track will be starting to dry with that sun coming out. The rain has stopped, so the track will be drying every lap, every moment they go around it. And Gabardi right on the back of Van der Nies. He fancies a podium.
Most definitely. Daniel Lee with a little drift there. At this point, you're going to have to go offline. You're going to be, dare I say, you're going to be wanting to look at those puddles to keep those wet tyres in the temperature range and to keep them where they are. So we're going to see a lot of offline driving here in these final 5 to 5, just under 10 minutes. So it does create an interesting one. Like you said, Gabardi looking for an overall podium. He's got Chris Van der Nies right in front of him, and he is going to be hunting. He is going to be big in Chris's rear view. So it now creates the atmosphere of, I've gone off, I want that position back, and he is here to fight. He is really the story of this evening.
Question though, Lexi, is how much will he fight this? Because any incident, any moment that Gabardi has, Pierce is only 7 seconds behind. Kenyon's only 9 seconds behind. He's already had a big moment that's cost him near enough 9 or 10 seconds. He will not want another big moment again in this race that could possibly cost him the win in that AM category. Let's not forget, an overall podium is brilliant. He scores no extra points for an overall podium. He will only score the same as this class win. So it is all about maintaining that class win. And this is where drivers in this multi-class system have got to be clever, as Danny Lee there slides out of the corner. The double right-hander then. Down the back straight they come. Gabardi on the back then of Van der Nies. In the background there you see Burns and Blow for the pro race lead as well. And Danny Lee is watching on Gabardi. On Gabardi on the back of Van der Nies, then coming down the back straight, just wiggling a little bit on the straight, trying to look for some clear air, just to have a look if a move is available on the inside, and that is Clive Davis entering the pit lane. Clive, he's got past that of Kenyon, so Kenyon loses out to one of the pro drivers, which puts a car between him and Pierce in bronze. Danny Lee following that of Gabardi, who pulls out of the mist and the spray of the Porsche in front of him, and just has a little look into turn 1, but nothing happening there.
I mean, what I'm looking at with these drivers now is, are they looking at a setup for race number 2? Because, of course, reverse grid order for the top 12. So Bosch, at this current rate, will start P number 12. However, Felix Votter has brought that gap down quite significantly in the past 2 laps, and he is now closing in. So it's going, I think we may have a battle in these final laps, as he is closing in very fast to Stefan Bosch. So has something happened up top?
Clive Davis has put the dry tyre on.
So yeah, Clive Davies on the dry tyre. That's an interesting one, considering that there is still spray out there.
Yeah, look, and it's not worked. You can already tell he's not even going quick enough, can't keep it on the circuits. That's not worked. Votter is within 0.6 of a second now of Bosch at the moment. So there's a fight for the lead. Gabardi has got past Van der Niese, so is Danny Lee. So there's a change for P3 overall, and there's a huge amount of puddles there. That is so crazy that Votter's just driven through that puddle at the moment. Bernsson's just got past Juncker then. And now we have a race lead battle with just under 5 minutes to go here. Bosch versus Votter. Votter's not been in this race all day, really, has he? And now, 5 minutes to go, he's deciding to mount his attack.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been doing some good old scouting, watching the battles in front, catching their lines, seeing what they're doing, and then creating a game plan to try and fly past. Of course, Felix Votter is the championship leader. Stefan Bosch is the leader in this race. There is no Corey Lazarus out on circuit, so it's Votter's night to lose. And he is now hunting down. He's going to be right in the rear view once again. We've seen it so many times this season. Never usually has a good qualifying, but we've seen him in the races. He begins to speed up and get that times on the board, and he is catching up even more as Clive Davies comes back into the pit lane. I think they're going to be going back on the wet tyres. It's Chris Van der Niese versus Danny Lee on the back straight, wheel to wheel, side by side, inches, millimetres apart, looks to the outside, gets it done, and it's now Danny Lee fights back, but they've got to be careful because Gabardi's right in front of him. It's a bit of a chicane. Yes, Gabardi is in there for overall, but it's points per classification. But of course, being elite, pro and am. And now the battle for P1 is truly on. Felix Votter is right on the rear bumper of Stefan Bosch. We've got 3 minutes 40 seconds of racing to go.
We have it. It's going to be fantastic to see Felix Votter. One heck of a race driver, like you said. Doesn't always qualify that well, but his racecraft is so good that he is a joy to watch as they come uphill now into this double right-hander. Heaviest braking zone on the circuit. Does well not to hit the rear there of Bosch, coming through the second of the right-handers now. Back straight, little wiggle on the exit there. You see that correction on the wheel. Now in the slipstream of Stefan Bosch's Porsche in front. Vivas, Davis and Louis Pereira all laps down. They've all been into the pits. Louis Pereira is out of this race at the moment. Now Votter to the outside of Bosch. Very close on the times. Into the S's now. Just taking that wide line. Trying to pull it back in is Felix Votter. Great racecraft from Felix. He's had great race pace, great racecraft. He's obviously not got that one lap pace in qualifying today, but it's the ability to take this race win. 23 minutes 19 on the clock. We start possibly the penultimate lap of the race then. So Votter could have two chances left at overtaking here. And he's gone very, very wide onto the grass he goes. And he's made that little mistake, just tried to carry too much momentum into turn one. You very rarely see a mistake like that from Felix Votter. And he's off now at turn two. He's got to gather that thought to momentum. And Bosch may have just won this race in them first two corners. Votter making the mistakes.
Pressure which can mount, especially towards the end, and that may be it hitting as you see Danny Lee there still trying to chase down Chris Van der Niese, who did get back past him, and now they are fighting once again. So these battles are here in the final moments. We had a lot of chaos, good chaos at the start of this race, and now it is pure racing action. As you see down the inside, Martin Kenyon versus Mike Pierce, who's right there, and they are now going to go wheel to wheel, side by side, going through the right hander. The DCWR car with a little bit of a love tap maybe, heading now down the left hander, downhill, gaining momentum, uphill, braking zone, and that is it. Yeah, that's big off, big bounce, and that is Mike Pierce looking to get the move done. Too much momentum, off and into the barrier. Danny Lee, here we go, side by side.
Side by side indeed, and I think that was Kenyon passing Pierce, because Kenyon was third in class. Danny Lee now side by side with Van der Niese for third place overall in the elite category. To the outside of the final corner, great side by side action this from Danny Lee, who gets it all sideways on the exit of the corner. Down the start straight they come. Van der Niese can tuck to the racing line and stays in front here as we start the final lap of the race. Felix Votter's back within 6/10 of Bosch, but as he gave himself too much to do, there he is. Has he just given himself that too much work to do after going wide through the first couple of corners? Danny Lee's got past Van den Ise, and all of a sudden now, Votter really hot on Bosch's heels.
Yeah, most definitely. The battle for the final place. He has got the heavy braking, which they now head into the back straight and the S's. It's Felix Votter who wants that race lead. He's P number 2. He started lower down, 3 positions up in this race. Bosch started P2 with an identical lap time to P number 1. That front row lockout was legendary, but now this battle will be. Daniel Lee gets past Gabardi overall, but he keeps the same points down the back straight in the slipstream. The spray comes off the Porsche in front, and that is going to be extremely close. Pulls out at the last second, wheel to wheel, side by side, very wide on the exit, going around the outside,
Oh,
gonna
he's
hold
got
it
him.
there. Felix Votter takes the lead on the final lap here in race 1, and he is gonna take it seems, here at Mosport. Final lap in the S's. Felix Votter wins, Stefan Bosch P2, Gabardi P3 overall to take win in AM, and then it's Danny Lee P3 in Elite, then it's Van den Ise in P number 4 in Elite. Jesper Burns takes the win in the Pro, very close behind is Luke Blow. Then it's Steve Kleiss to round out the podium for Pro as well. It is going to be Kenyon and then Pierce who will round out the podium for the AM as well. You see Mike Pierce coming across the line there. Possibility of P number 2 for him, but a big moment in the heavy braking at the back part of the circuit did unfortunately cost him that, but still an AM podium overall. And then we have got Fellows, Blair, Vivas and Davies still yet to come to the line. They now head down and around, holding onto this as it does currently stand. So Blair is right there. You can also see Vivas as Davies now comes to the line. So it's Blair and Vivas who are now going to be coming to it as they now come through the final few S's. And it's going to be P number 15 and 16, P number 16 and 17 overall. Fellows crosses the line. It's then Blair and Vivas. Matthew, that was a wet race 1, an energetic race 1, a final lap overtake by Votter, Gabardi with an absolutely mega display, and without a doubt, as the drivers now have a 5-minute warm-up, which some may use as a quick little break to maybe get a snack or a drink, it is definitely a very, very interesting one, as that is going to be very, very good. And Matthew, that was such a good race 1.
Yeah, cracking race 1. What a race it was for every driver up and down the grid. A lot of chaos, a lot of dramas, a lot of individual moments and errors that they have made as we head into that second race in a few moments' time. The drivers will get a quick 5-minute warm-up session in this one, but it was Felix Votter who beat Stefan Bosch and Danny Lee, with Van den Ise, Bernson and Finoli, your top 6 in that elite category then. Did it with 2 corners to go, Felix Votter. What a move at the end. What a way to win it, because he wasn't really in this race early on. The pro order was a little different to normal. Obviously, not as many cars on the grid tonight. It was that of Jasper Burns, who beat Luke Blow from Steve Kleiss and Wiley Blair down the order. Good battle between Jasper Burns and Luke Blow, though. They were separated by 0.2 of a second at the end, so heck of a fight between them two. And then the AM results as well. Gabardi taking that overall that race win for the AM category from Kenyon, who them two 2nd and 3rd in the championship before tonight. That's huge championship points for them over that of Louis Pereira, who did not finish this race. Obviously, Pierce was P3 from Ketchos, Junker Fellows, Vivas, Clive Davis and Louis Pereira bringing up the rear. And really, what a bit of racing it was in that first race. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show why Porsches can be some of the best machinery out there. Everybody's on a level playing field, so it comes down to pure skill, and the wet weather in there as well. It was such a good race. key factors is of course Felix Votter with that final lap overtake to take the overall and elite win in there, but also Gabardi and Bosch with identical lap times in qualifying. Yeah. So those are definitely the highlights there. We had a lot of chaos at the start of the race. Good chaos nonetheless, but towards the end we got some really good side-by-side action as well. So race 1 is very good in my books. We'll do this again at the end and after race number 2. But if you're going to give a driver of the race to anybody, Matthew, for race number 1, who is it going to be?
Felix Votter wasn't in that race at all. Felix Votter, he had such a good race. He was just brilliant, wasn't he? Absolutely fantastic.
I would say exactly the same. Like starting further down in qualifying than we expected, coming through final lap, overall win, elite win. If any, it's Felix Votter, and you've got to give race number 1 to that man. But of course, big one to Gabardi as well. This may be an interesting one, but I think it would have been interesting to see Gabardi up there if he didn't have that spin with Felix Votter and Bosch.
That it would have been an interesting race at the end, I reckon, see what Gabardi could have done. While we are, though, in the warm-up session, let's give a bit more of a thanks to some of our other sponsors that backing this Daniel Lee Porsche Cup. Coach Dave Academy, thanks for their support of the series. Coach Dave Delta with Auto Insights is a setup, data analysis and AI coaching app for iRacing, ACC, Le Mans Ultimate and even Gran Turismo 7. Remove the mystery and stay ahead of your rivals with Delta by Coach Dave. Go to www.coachdaveacademy.com. We'd also, lastly, like to thank Grid Engineering for support, who is a supporting sponsor. Grid Engineering by SimLab for their support of the series. Grid Engineering provides a wide range of top-tier sim racing products, including Porsche licensed equipment to provide the ultimate motorsport experience in your simulator. Find the full range at gridengineering.com. And lastly as well, Evolution Sim Racing is the host community. Danny has chosen the Evolution Sim Racing community as the hosts of the Danny Lee Porsche Cup by GT Omega. ESR runs multiple well-run leagues of a variety of disciplines. Head to discord.gg/ESR to join their community and take part in one of their series. As we then gear up, Lexi, for that second race of the day. It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? The weather set to dry out a little bit with that reverse grid. Apologies, Lexi's had to step away just momentarily. So we will get ready for this warm-up to come to an end as the session finishes now. Drivers are going to be getting ready for that reverse grid. Lexi's back with us now. Lexi, the race and track drying for this second one. With the reverse grid, we've seen drivers make their own mistakes, and I think we're going to be in for a bit of a similar race this second time round.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that comes down to the different conditions, and of course the way that it comes round for everything as the drivers get ready to go racing one more time. It creates an interesting atmosphere now as Oscar Bernson will line up on pole position, Fortis Ketchos will line up in P number 2. Mike Pierce and Kenyon round out the second row of the grid with Steve Kleiss and Luke Blow being in the third. It's then Burns, Chris Van Den Esse, Danny Lee and Gabardi rounds out the top 10. It is then going to be Stefan Bosch and Felix Votter for P number 12. So it is going to be an interesting one. And then it's Elias Finoli, Ed Juncker, Fellows, Blair, Vivas, Davies, and then Ricardo Louis Pereira rounds out the grid. Matthew, there's a lot of AM drivers up there at the top of the grid.
There is indeed, and this is going to be the ample opportunity for Kenyon to try and take back some interesting points in this championship. The one thing I'm noticing though, Lexi, at the moment is there are a few wet tyres still on some of the cars as we get the 5 lights on. And for race 2, it is green and go. Kenyon, one of them drivers on the wet. It looks absolutely bone dry. He gets a good start who goes 3 wide with Ketchos. Coming down into Tier 1, now there's a bit of spray forming. So the wet tyre, was it the best choice? We'll wait and see. As they come through, Kenyon and Pierce still side by side coming down in towards turn 2. Pierce goes a little bit wide. That's Blow who just kicks up a bit of grass. Bernson's got away well. chaos in the background. That is Kleiss and Danny Lee, who've both had a moment through the downhill section, and it's dramas already on lap 1. Several drivers, Kleiss and Davis and Ketchos, with Burns all on the dry tyre, and that may be what has happened to Danny Lee there. He's been caught out by some of the slick tyre runners, but they are all on the wets coming through. Where is that of Gabali? P7, Vottas P5, they're now up to 6th as that's Ketchos in the gravel.
4 out of 19 on the dries. It looks like the wets were the correct positions as there is still spray going on. It's going to be battles all across the place, as that is going to be Steve Kleiss again into the barrier. But we've got so many battles down this back straight. Jesper Burns 7 positions down since the start of this race, getting absolutely swarmed down the back straight. Hops in the slipstream to try and make it back. Blair past Junker up ahead, but now down into the S's. Finoli and Chris van der Nesse locked in a battle. You can see it on the timing board. The battle for PA is there, but now you see all these drivers. It's 1 ahead, 4 astern, and it now heads round into lap number 2, up and under there for Fellows, and that is that done. I think the dry tyres may have been a bad choice unless the track dries up quick enough. If you're watching real life and you've been watching Formula 1, real life Silverstone vibes from earlier today at this moment as Vivas gets past Junker. But right now, it's the Swede of Bernson who leads, followed by the Englishman of Kenyon and then the Brit of Pierce.
Yeah, it is indeed. And let's keep our eyes on Burns. Danny Lee down in 16th place. Let's keep our eyes on him. He's the lead car on that slick tyre, but it's Bernson who leads from Kenyon. And we've had of Louis Pereira P10 at the moment, Gabbardi P6. This is what Kenyon needs to outscore both of these two and to try and claw some points back in that AM Championship. This is going to be an interesting race to watch as Pierce and Blow going at it at the moment. Blow is the pro leader. There is a dry line appearing though, Lexi. This is going to be interesting as this race goes on. 2.5 minutes gone. There is definitely a dry line appearing in the middle of this track. This could be huge for the slick tyre runners down the order. Remember, Burns is the leader on that slick tyre, but it's Bernson 3 seconds ahead of Kenyon, and then it's a train, and on the back of that train, Felix Votter and Gabbardi.
Most definitely all aboard the Porsche Express as you head down the main straight, passing the pit lane under the Michelin gantry and then into turn number 1. Very wide there for Kenyon, and now through these corners, going to hold on to as much position as you possibly can. Felix Votter also there through the left-hander where we saw Kleiss and Danny Lee go off on lap number 1. It was deja vu from race number 1 as Pierce gets past Kenyon. Wheel to wheel, side by side, through the double right hand. They're going to go for a square, Gabbardi and Votter. Also there is a 4-way fight between Kenyon, Pierce, Votter, Gabbardi, and maybe, just maybe, we're going to have Stefan Bosch and Chris van der Nies, who are going to battle very often. Into the barrier goes Pierce. Deja vu again. It's a lot of repeats. This track is giving us very mixed conditions, but you can see a dry line forming. Like you said, Matthew, it is now going to be in this battle, and now here comes Gabbardi and Votter trying to make their way through as Blow has got away a little bit. Kenyon has to be careful now because he's got 5 cars astern as Gabbardi looks for the inside.
Lexi, it's all that fight between Kenyon and Gabbardi at the moment then as they're coming through. As Gabbardi now has a look at the inside into the final corner. Did he just make a little bit of contact? I don't think so. Gabbardi, though, gets up the inside, will be in that AM lead and in 3rd place overall. Felix Votter's going to have the door left open for him as well. And that is a move done by Felix Votter. Now that he's caused between himself and Bosch. And now Gabbardi leads once again. Kenyon still 2nd place at the moment in that AM category, while Louis Pereira is down the order. Burns, 25 seconds off the back of the lead. He's nearly 10 seconds off the back of Fellows, but that dry line, every lap just starts to get drier and drier and drier and more apparent as we go. Kenyon's off! Kenyon is off, and that's putting behind Pierce.
Very wide there, as I do believe Chris van der Nies just tried to go for a move on Bosch, did not work out. Mike Pierce also there trying to hold on to it. Junker getting past Vivas, nice and done round the outside. Fellows going to pass him as well. Vivas is struggling out there, So it is going to be that as we see Grammy Vivas, as that is actually Ricardo Louis Pereira. Gabardi is having a field day with the championship. Louis Pereira is down again. He's 5 positions up from the race start, but he was round halfway. And that is now very unlucky for him, as Vivas now is going to look for the move down the back straight, going around the outside, and that looks to be done. But no, not yet. He's still going to be there. He now gets it done. Louis Pereira is going to have to fight with all his might to get back up this field. It has not been a good day in the office for the Portuguese driver this evening.
It's been a poor one for him. Burns is now going to be on the back. That's only 8 seconds off the back of Louis Pereira now. Burns obviously the lead car on that dry tyre. Danny Lee moves up to 11th place. Good move on Wiley Blair there. Burnson looks in control of this race, but keep your eyes on Votter. Votter was 6 seconds behind Bosch at the start of midway through race 1, should I say. He's now he then won that one, so keep your eyes on Votter in this race. Gabardi and Blow still in front, but this is down the order. Louis Pereira ahead of Fellows, ahead of Graham Vivas. Burns is that car 10 seconds behind these leading slick tyre runner, if you remember, in this one. And he's got, I tell you what, looking at the lap times here, he's not a million miles away. He's only 2 seconds off the best lap time of Graham Vivas, the car ahead of him, as that is Ed Junkeroff at the usual point here at the moment. That seems to be the place today where they have just outbreak themselves, aquaplaned off, and that has been the one to really sort of the drivers have made mistakes here. Danny Lee ahead of this train at the moment, but you get the feeling he's pulling away. Look at that dry line appearing now, Lexi. It is more apparent yet again, and everybody on these wet tyres, their tyres are going to start to be screaming Burns. This is going to be interesting to keep our eyes on his lap times here.
Yeah, I think at this rate, with this dry line forming, when you get to 10 minutes into this race, that 10-15 minute that window between 10 to 15 minutes is where you're going to have to make your decision. Do you pit and switch to dries, or do you stick it out on the wet compound? Personally, I think you would want to come in for dries just as a safety margin. But right now, Luke Blow, 4 positions up from the race start for Blair Autosport, and they are now making their way through as quickly as possible. Gabardi on the back of him, Felix Votter there as well. Burnson has driven away as that is Danny Lee, who is round. A little bit of a tap on the barrier as he spun it back round onto the circuit. But now you see all these drivers starting to pass him. I do wonder if we could get a replay on that, because it may have been the usual going wide and off into the grass. We will get to see what happens. It may just be wide and off into the grass. I think it is, or is it just dropping it on his own?
Lexi, this is the part, when I did a GT3 race around here, that was the common error in the dry. The rear going light over the crest as you drop downhill. That is a common error on this part of the circuit, and Danny Lee there being caught out by it. So it's not really anything to do with the wet that's caught him out there. That'll possibly be tyres overheating. Clive Davis into the pits. He's got some significant front end damage on his car, so that'll be him in for repairs there. Blow now has got Gabardi and Votter on the back of him. Kenyon still on the back of Pierce down in 7th and 8th. Van der Nies is joining this queue as well. And the fastest laps was brought up on screen a moment ago. 24.3, the fastest lap by that of Burnson, out front in the lead of this race. But just keep your eyes on that of Jesper Burns. Last lap not great of a 30.0, but the car behind him a 28.3. So them slick tyres just starting to come into play. It still is wet enough for the wet tyre runners to be in the mix of keeping decent pace out there. Danny Lee is now in the pits. That'll and Ketchios in this one as well. So let's see what happens here then. This is Blow, Gabardi and Votter, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Leader in Pro, leader in AM, 2nd place in the Elite category. Let's see what happens here. Is one of the slick runners there down the order. That is Burns into the 26s now. So that crossover happening as we go.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, you got to start thinking about it, and maybe, just maybe, starting on the dries was the correct call. Danny Lee into the pit lane there So I think he's opted to go onto the dry compound so far now. So so we'll wait and see what Danny Lee can do here. As yes, he is on the slick tyres. So that is going to be an interesting one. Looking for it. Luke Blow there, still defending from Gabbardi and Felix Votter. Going to be making their way through now onto another lap here at Mosport. Downhill, left-hander. Very, very Luke Blow. And that was very... Oh, Gabbardi, low. Almost going right into him. A little love tap on the left-hand side. Felix Votter now looks for the outside line, unable to get past. But big into the puddle. Felix Votter goes off. Chris Van der Nies is getting a front row seat.
I think the tyres are going here, Lexi. I really do think the tyres are starting to give up on these wet runners at the moment. We're not seeing their times drop off. We made this lap as Votter's now going up the inside of Blow, so that'll give him third place. But all these wet tyre runners currently struggling at the moment. I think the tyre temperature's a little hot. There's Votter, looking for the puddles, looking for the damp patches on the circuit, as is that of Blow. Van der Nies are pretty much pushing Blow down the back straight, tucks that inside line. The dry line massively appearing now. Keep your eyes on that slick runner of Jasper Burns. He was leader on slicks last time around. And let's see what these drivers do, because Danny Lee now has also gone in for them slick tyres. This could be interesting. We've still got about half of this race to go. And these four drivers here, Gabbardi, Votter, Van der Nies, second, third, fourth overall at the moment. Bertson has disappeared down the road. That gap is nearly 8 seconds here. And this race is well and truly on. Drivers dropping into the 26s now. Bertson can just kind of manage his tyres, can't he? Look at them all understeering wide a little bit, nearly kissing the outer part of the grass. And there goes Blow. Round he goes, all on his own. And this is really now going to hurt his wet tyres. Overheating. Needs to find a few puddles to cool them down. Kenyon gets past him there. And now we've got Votter side by side with Van der Nies. So that is Gabbardi just up in front. Down the hill they come before the heavy braking zone. We've seen drivers make so many mistakes here today. And are we going to see them now? Gabbardi a little wide on the first part. Votter clips the rear of him. And all stays as they are at the moment.
Yeah, that was very, very close to him, so it now becomes that fight. We saw Luke Blow. He had a moment there which almost cost him on the previous lap, and it now came back to Byers. What has happened here? That's Jasper Burns, and that is also going to be Grammy Beavers. That is a big collision. Both of the cars missing their front bumpers as Felix Votter, while we were looking at that, around the outside on Gabbardi. Here comes Chris Van der Nies. Votter over to P number 2. The Dutchman, Chris Van der Nies, is going to be right there with him. Look to the outside line onto the main straight. Is he going to get it? He's right there with him, wheel to wheel, side by side. Now that's done and dusted.
Done and dusted, 7 seconds off the lead, nearly 8 seconds for Votter. We've lost Louis Pereira, he's out this race, so his day has gone from bad to worse for Louis Pereira. His championship in AM could be an absolute tatters. Burns and Vivas into the pit lane, and Burns was the leader on the slick tyre. Let's take a look though at some slick running. Danny Lee is in the 24.9s. Not the fastest lap of the race yet. Only 9/10 off of that. But he is absolutely flying. Purple in Sector 1, we're being told in our ear. So it is a slick track at the moment. And this is the fight between Elias Finoli, Stefan Bosch, Mike Pierce and Luke Blow. The slick tyre is coming to its own in this second half of the race. Has Danny Lee got enough in the tank to maybe get something out of this? It would be an extraordinary comeback if he did.
Most definitely. Danny Lee a little bit further down than he would have hoped in race number 1. Race number 2, maybe Retribution Day, and it is now going to be on an absolute drive, going even faster. 123.6. That is now the fastest, and he is absolutely flying out there on the circuit. You can see the other drivers' times on the board. He is he is nearly a full second faster than Oscar Bernson, as he is now.
He's 2 seconds faster. It's 1.9 seconds he's just taken out of him on the last lap. Chris Van der Nies has just done a 23.6 on the wet tyre on the back of Felix Votter. So fair play to Van der Nies for that, who sets now the fastest lap of the race on the wets. But Danny Lee has just taken 2 seconds nearly out of that of Berntsen. Votter and Van den Eeser have just taken a second, nearly 2 seconds out of that of Berntsen as well on the last lap. So Danny Lee flying on the 6. Wiley Blair is into the pits. You can only assume you're pitting at this stage of the race for that slick tyre option. Jasper Burns back out on track after a 2-minute 9 pit stop. Graham Viva's still in the pit lane. And in comes Wiley Blair. There is your race leader. The gap is 5.9 seconds back to Felix Votter, who is defending for his life from Van den Eeser and Gabardi. Could Votter make it 2 from 2? He's got his work cut out with just under 10 minutes left to go. This will be an epic race if Votter takes 2 here. But keep your eyes on Danny Lee. He is 17 seconds off the back of Ketchios, who is 16 seconds off the back of Fellows. Danny Lee goes into the 22s, so we are now 3 seconds quicker than Berntsen last time around. Danny Lee is flying, or he was, he's off, and into the wall backwards. All that hard work comes undone, and he goes a lap down to Berntsen.
You can only imagine what it's going to be like. He was absolutely flying, trying to push it as hard as possible as we go on board to watch the replay down into the left-hander, and it is just keeps on going. I think he actually hits the edge of a puddle which is sitting on the apex. So that is what happened there, but you can only imagine what it's like for the leaders right now. They will be on the radios to their race engineers, wondering what are the dry lap times, what are the predictions, what is the radar looking like, and it is now going to be the dry. But you can see all of these corners, especially towards the back part of the circuit, as that is Elias Finoli, who is off and down. He is very unfortunate for him, but you see that there, the big puddle. So towards the back part of the circuit, there is still a few puddles sat on the apex. So with just under 10 minutes to go, Matthew, I think at this point, the wet tyre runners are just going to have to hold this out at the top.
The wet drivers are going to just have to hang it in there. Berntsen can't afford any mistakes, neither can Votter. You see how much they're struggling though. Sideways nearly through the corners. The tyres must be screaming at them to cool them down. They're trying to find every damp part of the circuit they can possible in this race. That so far Berntsen leads 6 seconds from Votter, Van den Eeser, Gabardi, then it's Blow. Leads dry tyre running out is out of Ketchios still, who is down in the 23s, matching that of the wet tyres at the moment. So the tyres not yet dropping off. They're not as quick as the slicks, but they are not dropping off. That is the most important thing in this race. Danny Lee there could have been on for something special until he dropped the car into the wall. Kenyon, 3rd place overall in the championship. 3rd place in that AM category at the moment so far. This is going to be an interesting one as Pierce now has been overtaken by Finoli, so Pierce and Kenyon could go back at it as well in that AM category. There is Pierce, Kenyon just in the background, and this is going to be an interesting fight to the very, very end.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's one of those ways that it comes down to it. It's a very good night out for Pierce as well, actually. Not so much last time round. That was a very unfortunate race, as it's going to be Van den Eeser and Votter who are now going to be locked in this fight, wheel to wheel, round the outside. Felix Votter looks for him, rear end slips out, Gabardi's going to look to overtake him now. Rear end slip for Gabardi, big contact between the two. Votter keeps it straight, Gabardi gets half spun into the grass, avoids the barrier. That was extremely close. Here comes Luke Blow, but also going to have Bosch, Finoli, Pierce and Kenyon all in the stern.
What an absolute dramatic end to this race. Felix Votter all out of shape, and then that ended up him and Gabardi having a moment. Gabardi dropping the rear on his own, losing it, snapping the car into the front of Felix Votter. His tyres will be screaming at him at the moment. That is then Finoli defending from Pierce. Pierce can almost sniff that AM win in this race. Gabardi struggling at the moment. Danny Lee into the 21s now, so it's getting quicker and quicker this track so far. Finoli on the grass. Danny Lee's got past Clays. Him and Clays side by side. These two was off at lap 1, let's not forget, and Danny Lee now fighting Clays hard as they come through the S's once again. It is Danny Lee versus Clays at the moment. This is an interesting one to keep our eyes on. One thing we can say, Berntsen has done fantastic. I tell you what, it's a good job this isn't a 45-minute race, Lexi, because there's no way these wet tyres will be hanging on.
Yeah, this 25-minute race is definitely helping them out, just trying to find all those wet spots as Gabardi now trying to defend from below. We saw this in race, and he's got Bosch behind him as well, so we may get deja vu again from race number 1. So it is starting to heat up here at the Mosport circuit. It is going to be 5 minutes remaining, and it is now Danny Lee who's still battling Clyde. They have been battling this entire season, different categories, still get points, but it's one of these rivalries which even though it's different classes, it is still it's still a rivalry, and it's still a lovely thing to watch.
It is indeed. This is Danny Lee down with Clyde 13th and 14th at the moment, not really in this race now. Saying the fact that Clyde needs to get past Blow in 5th for the race win, and Danny Lee needs to get to Finoli in 8th for any more points for his category in his night. Burnton's pulled that gap back out to Van der Niesa and himself, so that has opened that one up. Jesper Burns fastest lap, 1 minute 20.6. So absolutely flying. Shame that he's had a few moments in this race. This is your leader into the final 4 minutes, and Oscar Burnton goes through the S's there into the final corner now. And this is a fantastic race. You have to feel for Louis Pereira. It's not been his night today at all. He has dropped out of both races. That'll be poor points for him tonight, and that'll give Kenyon and Gabardi a huge chance in this championship going into the final race at Nordschleife. Here's Clayson, and he's defending well at the moment, isn't he, from Danny Lee, you have to say. Say that these two was off on lap 1. Defending very well is Clayson and Danny Lee.
Yeah, it's one of these fights which we just love to watch, and it's very, very good defending. It's a masterclass, some may say. You can see the damage on the rear end of Danny Lee's car, as you see the rear end shots a bit scraped up on the left-hand side as well, and it is now down the back straight. Danny Lee's going to try hopping the slipstream. Of course, the aerodynamics are exactly the same on the cars, apart from if there's damage and it pumps up the car a little bit. Down the back straight, Danny Lee, wheel to wheel, side by side with him, going to look for the outside line through the right-hander. Wet puddles on the outside, got to be careful of those. Clyde, the Belgium driver, still going to hold into that position. It's a Brit versus a Belgium, and it's now into the S's in this final part of the circuit, as Finoli and Pierce are off, and that is contact. What has happened between these two? Oh, they both just gone off at exactly the same time. We're going to have to hope that we can get a replay on that, because what has happened, in fact, no, it is Willie Blair. So what has happened between these two drivers is now down through the left-hander, Matthew.
Yeah, coming up to that tricky braking zone where they've been struggling all day, just into the back of Pierce. Just into the back of Pierce there. And Wiley Blair, who's a lap down, didn't really need to be involved in that one. Just straight into the back of Pierce. That's a shame to see from the lapped car there. But Pierce now drops behind Kenyon. That'll help Kenyon for this championship run, that is for sure. And what a shame at the moment for that of Pierce, who was running so well in that second place in the AM category. But you have to say, fantastic race from Burnson. Did what he needed to do early on in this one, and he's just started to creep out a bit more of a gap over Van der Niesa. After a poor race 1, it's been a great race 2. Lap time starting 12 around the 22s for the wet runners, while the slick tyre runners seem to be running in the 1 minute 20s. As Ketchos has actually got past Fellow. So Ketchos, the leading dry tyre runner, he's only 9 seconds off the back of Ed Juncker. And with what, 1.5 minutes remaining, possibly the final lap about to be started next time around from Burnson, I don't think Ketchos is going to have enough time to do it. Steve Clays now and Danny Lee both in the 119s. Round the final corner comes Burnson. He'll take the white flag. Blow and Gabardi going at it. Gabardi gets ahead of Blow. Up into P4 goes Gabardi. Great little move that coming into the S's. Stefan Bosch, he's not had the pace, has he, in this second race?
It does not seem like it. He's just been watching this fight in front of him, hoping to get into it, but it is not worked out so far. Of course, onto this final lap here at Mosport, and Stefan Bosch, he's 5 positions up since the race starts, so we can give him that. However, it's not as much as he would have hoped from what we saw in race number 1. Gabardi, on the other hand, I would say he's had a very, very good race. Same with Luke Blow. So it's now the Ukrainian versus the Brit as we head into the back parts of this circuit. The question is, how long is going to be left on the timing board? It's going to be very, very close for him, as Fellows has lost out 2 positions there to Steve Kleiss and Danny Lee, as the leader is now coming down into the S's, and he will be taking this race win, Matthew.
Oscar Berntsen did what he needed to do at the start of this race. The reverse grid helped him out through the S as he comes towards the final corner. The Swedish driver, not the race one he'd have wanted, but he rounds the final corner. He will take the race 2 win here at Mosport. Great drive from Berntsen at the end. Van den Isse looks like he's going to come through for that second place from Felix Votter in third. The wet tyres just dying at the end for Votter. Possible damage as well. Gabardi will win in the amateur class again and will be P4 on the night ahead of Luke Blow, the winner of the pro category, from Stefan Bosch and Finoli. Kenyan second place and 8th overall in second place in AM. That is huge points for him in that championship in AM. Pierce in 9th overall from Ed Junker. Wiley Blair and Jesper Burns and Vivas have also finished down the order. Ketchos, leader on the slick tyre, just makes a little mistake at the end here as he comes across the grass there at the very end in towards the final corner. He's going to just lose out, but this is the fight. Steve Kleiss versus Danny Lee. Danny Lee to the outside. Oh, rear gets light. Rear goes round hard and heavy into the wall. You can see the front right suspension is absolutely knackered. That is a retirement. Well, it'll have to be. He's going to have to trundle to the end. He's lost out to Fellows as a result. Danny Lee will be returning to the pits. There's no way he's getting that car back. It'll be P14 for him. Fellows will be P13, and that is what happens when you push the limits with a damaged car. Danny Lee hard and heavy into the wall. That was a huge impact.
Saw the front bumper come off straight from the impact, and that is just how hard it can hit. The entire right hand side of the car hitting it with a blunt force. But of course, that's an incident what happened on the final lap. We won't take it away from this man. Oscar Berntsen is going to be the race winner here. Chris Van den Esse, P number 2. Felix Votter, P number 3. And of course, we will have the championship to look at. Of course, incidents and everything. Oscar Berntsen wins here in the elite category. It's then Chris Van den Esse. Votter rounds out the podium. It's then Bosch, Finoli and Danny Lee to round out elite. Going over to the pro category, it's Luke Blow who wins in that, followed by Steve Kleiss, and Willie Blair rounds out the podium on that with Jesper Burns, P number 4. And then the amateur category, finally, it is Vesta Gabardi. That's 2 for 2 this night. It is the win for him with Martin Kenyon P2 and Mike Pierce P number 3 to round out the podium. It's then Junker, Ketchos, Fellows, Vivas, Davies, and then a night to forget for Ricardo Louis Pereira. Gabardi will definitely be leading in the AM category now, but I want to talk about this after tonight. Of course, still got to think about it, Matthew, with any incidents and the stewards, but I think Felix Votter may have rounded out the championship.
I think you might be right there, and in fact, let's speak with Felix Votter. Let's get him in and have a quick chat with him as well. Felix, it was a night where your championship competitor wasn't here, and a pretty good night for you in terms of the action out there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hello there, and I'm actually pretty much surprised that Corey isn't here, because there's still chances, but well, whatever came in between that. I was actually also surprised it worked out that great. So a win in the first race, I never expected that. I had 20 minutes of practice on this track. I never drove it before. I have been at the DTM the whole weekend, so I didn't have time, but it worked out great, and I'm really happy.
Yeah, it was a fantastic drive. Tell you, when you had the 20-minute practice, you could tell you was learning on the go. The pace wasn't there necessarily in qualifying, but talk us through mainly that race 1. That was a heck of a last lap. 2 corners to go, race to take the race win effectively. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah, that move was that was amazing. This corner feels so great to try it from the outside. I was just, the lap before I almost lost the car, and I was like, okay, damn, now he's 1 second away. And somehow I pulled back, and I was like, okay, either I send it now, around the outside and I try to go just as fast as I can into that corner, or the race is done. So I did that and it worked out and it felt amazing.
Apologies, muted myself there. Yeah, felt amazing. By our calculations, we believe you've wrapped up the championship, obviously, depending on anything in the background after tonight's races. But we go into the Nordschleife in 2 weeks' time. What do we think? What can we do around there?
I hope everything. I mean, we are going to drive the DNLS Community Cup, which is starting soon. So I have some Nordschleife practice, and I guess I'm gonna be fast there, and I'm excited for it.
Excited indeed. Felix, last of all, anybody you'd like to thank tonight?
Yeah, I guess I like to thank you guys for commentating this. Thanks to Danny Lee for organizing it, and also thanks to everyone for the fights, because the fights have been amazing tonight.
They have been indeed. Felix Votter, congratulations. We'll see you next time at the Nordschleife in a few weeks' time.
Oh yes, have a great one. Bye.
You too. Felix Votter there. Lexi, we've got Gabardi or Bernson in the room ready to go. Who would you like to speak to?
Let's go with Oscar Bernson for race 2 winner. We'll keep the ball rolling as Oscar Bernson. You are live on Apex Racing TV. Welcome in a victory in race number 2 for you. Talk us through it. It was, of course, race number 1, very wet conditions. Probably not what you hoped for, but a fight back in race number 2. Pole to the win. Talk us through it. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. I just want to first say sorry to Willie that I accidentally spun around on race 1. But yeah, like you said, race 1 wasn't really what I was hoping for. I bottled the quali and yeah, I got too greedy and yeah, used stupid moves and everything like that. But race 2, I think I managed well. I started on P1 because of my bad race 1. But yeah, and then I was a bit worried about the tires, but like dry on wets, that's not gonna work. But it did pretty well, and yeah, it ended pretty good.
So, of course, it is going to be the one and only Nordschleife in a fortnight's time for the season finale. What's the preparation going to be like going into there? As, of course, it's a very different circuit to this, and one mistake can ruin a race. And, of course, it's a singular 45-minute race for the season finale. So, what's the plan? What's the thoughts going into it? And what's it going to be like for the finale there?
Yeah, it's the Nordschleife is my favorite track, so it will be really good. I don't know how much that track is like. You don't really need to relearn it. You always know it. So I don't know how much I'm gonna train for it, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, it's gonna be a good finale, even if I'm not in the championship fight.
Yeah, we were talking about that with Felix Votter. Of course, you can still find the places in your own championship. Do you think you're going to be able to climb up a little bit, maybe just scraping to get up in that fight? So, what, of course, not like there, but is it going to be like we're racing to get as many points as possible, or scraping to get another position at the Nordschleife?
Yeah, it's going to be like, yeah, maybe get another position in the championship would be good, but it's not like... I mean, I'm like over 200 points behind P1 in the championship, so it's nothing for that, but I mean, you can always try to get a bit of a better position.
Well, fair enough. Before we let you go, is there anybody you would like to give a thanks to?
I would like to thank the guys on Ice Cold Racing, and I would like to thank my mum for paying the entry fee.
Oh, fair enough. It's great to see some family getting involved in this racing action. Thank you very much for joining us. We shall let you have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
And Matthew, we have 2 more opportunities for an interview. I think we will want to go with the man, the myth, the legend, Danny Lee at the end. So yeah, I shall let you take this with Gabardi.
Indeed. So We've got Corby in with us now, who I have to say, first of all, heck of a pole lap. That was fantastic in qualifying. Really strong lap. And then 2 real good, strong race performances out there. Just talk us through your night.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I think the highlight of the day was qualifying because, I don't know, it was faultless, but I felt there was a bit of time in that lap, but I just kept it safe because, I learned from previous races that I shouldn't push that much on the first few laps, but then the last final lap was pretty good because I was finding pretty good pace, thanks to the setup and thanks to my dad for helping with the setup. But it went well. Just really, really unlucky in race 1 because, with changing conditions, I don't have much experience with these conditions. But I had, going into the second sector, turn 5, I just had a FPS glitch. Like I lost full FPS, so I just locked up and lost the lead over there. But also race 2, it went pretty good. Lap 1 was a bit chaotic. Some people spun in front of me. We try to avoid them with Felix, but it was quite hard. The conditions were really, really tricky to guess. Where's the grip, where isn't? But I'm just happy. I talked with everyone. It was all good. Just really happy with the pace, and yeah, it was good.
And a good night as well in the fact that Pereira didn't seem to score many points DNF'd in both races. That's going to really help you, isn't it, in this AM Championship?
Yeah, for sure. But nonetheless, I should just keep my heads down because you may never know what will happen in Nordschleife. That's the green hell.
100.
The name speaks for itself.
Yeah.
But I didn't take part in Silverstone as well, so I guess it's level between us two. But I'm just looking forward for Nordschleife, and yeah, let's see what that green hell brings to us.
Yeah, Green Hell, 2 weeks' time. What can we do around there? Obviously, we know how much of a tricky circuit the Nordschleife can be. Thoughts? What do you think you can do?
I started with F1 and endurance races, and since Nürburgring and Nordschleife is obviously in the 24-hour calendar in the endurance races, I have some experience, but I've never driven it on iRacing, so I will make sure I'll spend some sleepless nights on Nordschleife, do some laps.
Well, you've got 2 weeks to have some sleepless nights, and hopefully some sleep just before the race as well to make sure you are fully fit and ready to go for that potential championship race against Pereira and Kenyon in that one in 2 weeks' time. Finally, anybody you'd like to thank tonight?
I just appreciate all the commentators, everyone who made the league possible, Danny Lee, my dad, my brother, thanks everyone for taking part, and make sure we all have fun. That's the main goal.
Indeed. Well, Avasta, congratulations tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem there from Avasta Gabbardi. And finally, we can get a word with the man, the myth, the legend, Danny Lee himself, who had a pretty mixed night. Danny, up and down to say the least, really. But I suppose you took the gamble in that second race on the slick tyre after making the pit stop.
Yeah, this was a really unexpected, joyous round. It might not look like it at times. The track was miserable to practice and refine on your own, but once you've got some cars on there in the wet, it becomes a completely different thing altogether. That was so much fun, and I had a great tango with a good few people there. So I kind of regretted it before the lights went out on the first race, thinking, what have I put everybody through? But soon enough you realise that this is actually a banger of a race. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you just wish you had more time on the clock to really see it through. So very, very mixed, but thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah, me and Lexi had said on comms that if this was the 45-minute race with these changeable conditions, the slick tyre could have worked at the end. It was two really good races. Drivers seemed to make their own mistakes in trying to push them limits, which seemed to make the racing that little bit more fun, especially from the spectator point of view. Is that how it felt in the car?
Yeah, it's just a tightrope with a track like Mosport. Plus, it's so infrequently seen on the official calendars, especially with wet weather sprinkled in. So everybody just had to, feel it through, use their instincts, and when you have to rely on instincts, you're going to make a few mistakes. So everybody had their fair share. Me and Chris Van Der Ness probably traded off tracks like a Saturday market or whatever. It was crazy. So entertaining, and had a little sympathy spin along with Steve Kleiss in race 2, which is definitely getting clipped because that was hilarious. It was just a really good-natured round, even if the results in the end weren't all to shout about. But I had a great deal of fun, and I hope everybody else did.
Lexi, anything to add?
I was going to mention the Steve Kleiss, but you've already beat me to it. So, of course, we've got the final round at the Nordschleife coming up in a fortnight's time, but maybe looking towards the future, as of course, Danny, this is the first time we've actually spoken to you since round number 1. So is there any plans for like a season 2 at the current moment, like a calendar? What's it looking like at the moment? Because from a spectator point of view, we've absolutely enjoyed this, and from what we're hearing from yourself and all the drivers, it's been an absolute pleasure to race against each other.
Well, a quick spoiler, there won't be a season 2 for a while. As it turns out, even when you have assistants, running a league can be a commitment, and I probably need to do it better next time, in a sense. I don't think this has been a failure by any means, but I would have liked to have done it more, but circumstances made it difficult to really commit. So when season 2 does occur, it'll be when we're ready. I think I'll take a bit of a break, focus on the bread and butter stuff that I've got to do, and then hopefully folks will have been introduced to the ESR people and also had a bit of a taste for the Porsche Cup, so they will go out and disperse into the wild and experience other Porsche Cup leagues in the meantime. But I'm glad that people have had a good time here.
And of course, you would talk about that as well with the Porsche Cup cars. I've already mentioned it. We'll go on to it. Nordschleife in 2 weeks' time. What's the plan looking like?
It's a treat, really. Those who enjoy the Porsche Cup enjoy the Nordschleife. So this is just really doing a bit of service for the people who really live for this car. Because when you know a car like the back of your hand, a small circuit ain't going to really suffice for a finale. You need the big one. And it is such a fun circuit for the Porsche Cup. It's one of the ones that made me smile the most when streaming a couple of seasons ago. So it's really just a treat for everybody. And those who haven't learnt it, well, I'm sure they'll manage, and they're going to experience it for the first time in a really supportive way.
And of course, as usual, before we let you go, is there anybody you would like to give a thanks to?
Thanks to yourself for providing the broadcast. Do a great job. To the contestants on the grid, they're a great bunch to race with, and they've been a pleasure to deal with. And to the series sponsors, GT Omega, Race Anywhere, Grid Engineering, and Coach Dave Academy. Thank you very much for your support.
Well, thank you to you as well, Danny, for getting this all sorted out. We shall see you in 2 weeks' time at the Nürburgring Nordschleife for the season finale. Have a good night.
Thank you. Cheers. And you guys. See you again.
Cheers, Danny. Thank you very much. So 2 weeks' time, we enter the Nordschleife for the season finale. What a race it will be. 45 minutes long. And it's going to be an absolute belter. You will not want to miss that one. Myself and Alexa Marshall will be bringing you all the action. Thank you to Samuli in the background tonight, as well as Aidan for bringing the stream and the camera angles and all the replays that you have seen on your screen. We'll be back in 2 weeks, as we've just said. It's going to be a fascinating night and a fascinating season finale. Lexi, going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'm a massive Nordschleife fan. Nordschleife, and it's the combined circuit, so you know it's going to be a good one. And like Danny said, it is the perfect place for a season finale when you know a car. These small circuits may not suffice, but the green hell might. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Alexa Marshall with Matthew Duffin. We'll see you at the Nürburgring. Good night.
Good night.